Good evening, everybody. It's Scott from Oak Societies here, and I'm going to be bringing you another awesome interview. Tonight, we're interviewing Nathan from Akashic Trancework. He is the founder of their school, and we're going to get into some of his thoughts of what the Akashic Records are, and we're going to take a deep dive into ETs, what his opinion on those, and we're going to go into a little bit about his school and what he does. Hope you enjoy, guys.
Awesome,
Thanks.
man. So we're just going to jump right into this.
Great.
And I just want to introduce you to everybody. This is Nathan. He's the creator of Akashic Trancework. And we're going to be going into what the Akashic Records are and dive deep into that tonight. So I guess my first question is, I know it's probably a big, broad question, is to the audience that might not even know what this is. What are the Akashic Records?
Think of the Akashic Records as a sort of database of collective memory. As human beings, we all share a single consciousness. The nature of this consciousness is such that we can all access our collective sensory memory. Specifically, we have, each of us, past life and ancestral memories available to us within this matrix of information. We can access this information in any number of ways. We've developed some specific techniques for that, which I guess we'll talk about here in a few moments as we conduct the interview. But essentially, it's just everything. When I'm working with people, I say, all knowledge gathered by all souls across all time, past, present, future, parallel. It's everything. Everything you could possibly ever want to know is there within the Akashic Record.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, so let's just give the audience a little background about you. When did you first become? Did you always have a sense of being able to access these records, or how did you come about even learning these things?
It's a pretty interesting story, and I'll try to be brief.
Okay.
So, I'm 41 years old, and when I was younger, I studied meditation, mysticism, Wicca, different occult metaphysical practices. I read about those things, I studied those things, but I never really applied them. It was more of kind of a dabbling practice. They were interesting to me, but I was a nerd. I was into fantasy stuff. So, it's just kind of what I did. And, once I grew up, I got into my 20s and, I had a child and a family and a business, and I started just being a regular Joe doing what I did. And I never really thought about these things. And then I had an awakening experience, which I'm sure that many of you have, back in 2012, 2013, around that time when a lot of us began to shift. And that is when I began to become aware of my channeling gifts, my ability to bring in certain energies, certain entities, certain whatever you might call them. Things would come and speak through me. Now, I didn't know what to make of it, and at first it was very scary. It was very strange. And for the last several years, prior to starting Akashic Trancework with my partner, Astara, I think did a lot of soul searching. I went through the dark night of the soul several times. I've learned this is a cyclical experience. It's not like you just go through this tunnel and then emerge and everything's roses. No, it's a continual cycle of awakening, which we've actually embedded into our work. So it was about a year ago, this month, when I was dealing with some very difficult things. Astara and I were struggling in the ways that twin flames often do. And I kind of had a breakdown. Honestly, I kind of fell apart. And a friend of mine who lives in Australia at the time was a past life regressionist. I never really thought about doing past life regression. I'd heard about it, but I never even really gave it any thought. I had some past life memories, but it just never really occurred to me to seek that out. But he encouraged me to have a session with him. So I did. It was over the phone. It was a really shitty connection, and I was surprised that I experienced anything, but I was able to, and I accessed a couple of my past lives. Those past lives themselves weren't especially eventful, but what I found after I had that experience, I had a strange intuitive ability to guide other people through past life experiences very naturally, without needing any training, without needing any scripts, without needing to really know anything about how other people did it. It was natural. So that is kind of really when Akashic Trancework began. We didn't give it that name for a little bit, and then my partner, with her own visions, brought so much more depth into this modality. And working with her, we were able to really create something new from this practice, really bring something new in from the Akashic record, an Akashically channeled modality.
That's
So no
awesome.
training, no experience, but I do have specific, detailed recollections of past lives where I've done very similar work to what I do now, Akashically.
That's awesome. And just, I know I've researched this a little bit. I know that from past lives that there would be, because of certain traumas that you might experience in past lives, there's emotional blockers get carried over in your DNA from what I know, and they just get carried on into your next life and your next life. And if those things aren't taken care of, you kind of go into the same cycle of every time you reincarnate, essentially. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And that's what I found working with myself and with Astara and with the other querents. We call all the people that come to us our querents. All those people have some kind of story to tell. Now, whether or not it's really a past life, sometimes maybe it's not. Sometimes maybe they are creating an experience out of the archetypal knowledge within themselves. Even if they are, that's actually okay. That becomes a shamanic experience, and that's why we've expanded beyond past lives. We no longer exclusively work with past lives. We work with ancestral memories. We work with the memories and thoughts and ideas and beliefs from the current lifetime as well. It's all part of that Akashic experience, and all those patterns, all the patterns that we've learned, the core beliefs that we've developed, the narratives that we've learned about ourselves and about the world, all of those things are what determine our patterns as we move forward. And this sort of experience, this collective experience that we have, can be very traumatic. As you said, there's a lot of really heavy shit in our collective karma: war, slavery, oppression, generation after generation after generation. I've actually begun a project, and it's still kind of in its infancy. I just started a Facebook group, and I haven't really fully decided what I want to do with it yet, but it's called Clearing the Trauma of War and Slavery. Heavy shit. It's
Yeah,
heavy shit.
absolutely.
And it has to be done on an individual level. Each of us has a piece of this karmic debt to clear. Each of us has a fraction, a fragment of this to clear, and that goes into something we call soul fragmentation, which I won't dive into much because I know we have other questions, but there's a lot to discuss there. Absolutely.
So just so people know too, this, and from what I understand, anybody can access the Akashic records. Is that right?
I believe so, and we've actually developed a process by which we teach people how to access the Akashic record, how to access it for themselves, how to access it for other people if they wish. And there's a couple different ways that the record can be accessed, but ultimately you have to be really willing to look at yourself, to face yourself honestly, authentically, openly, lovingly, gently, without judgment. That's really the key. In fact, the heart center is the key. If you can access your heart center, if you can manifest divine, unconditional love in a moment of perfect presence and clarity, even just for a second, then you have activated the portal into a deeper Akashic awareness. That's the key, and that's what we teach.
That's the key. That's awesome.
Could you go into soul contracts like we talked about earlier?
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite topics, all this is, but I love talking about this stuff. So everyone has different theories about soul contracts. I'm not going to sit here and say that I know the absolute objective truth about these things, but I have experiences, I've worked with people, I've done certain things that lead me to believe that we develop these soul contracts out of a loving bond. Consider for a moment that we are all one being, but we're sort of these fractal, fragmented versions of that same one source. So we travel in these groups. of individuated souls, individuated consciousnesses who are there to mirror one another. We're there to teach one another lessons, to teach ourselves lessons in a certain way. So we develop these bonds, these relationships, right? In the same way that people might get married in this lifetime or develop a close friendship or have a child. That's a contract, right? It's a social contract. We extend these contracts as human beings across our lifetimes because we have that cellular memory. We have that collective memory of all of our past lives within us. So we remember our contracts. Now, these contracts can be loving, beneficial things, or they can be ugly things, difficult things, challenging things, where we feel either that we are indebted or that someone owes us something, right? And we experience this in this lifetime too, right? Somebody does something to us, somebody fucks us over, right? So we feel like they owe us, or we do something to somebody and we feel guilt and shame and remorse and we want to make amends. And maybe we can't. Maybe whatever we've done cannot be apologized for. That happens. So what happens in the life between lives period, and this has been written about by some very well-known people that do past life research, there's a life between lives point. A lot of your more popular past life regression schools talk about this, like Dolores Cannon's quantum healing and different things like this, how you can access the full higher self-awareness between lives. Now, we don't need to do that, but it is an interesting point where you can go and you can see the higher self's perspective between lives. And it's one of such deep love and compassion that it looks out across this sort of vast tapestry of what the life was, of what happened in that life. And they can see, oh, these are the mistakes that I made. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or, oh, that person did this to me. Or that person did that to me. Because we're still kind of in an ego state. It's sort of a higher self ego, but it's still an attachment. It's still a singular, separate consciousness. So it makes an appraisal, it makes a judgment, and it says, okay, well, these are the debts that have been incurred in this lifetime. So this is how I'm going to reincarnate in the next lifetime with these people, with these patterns, so that I can make amends or get back the energy that I lost. Now, the problem is we don't always know when to end the contract. In fact, I believe that one of the reasons that we incarnate in these 3D linear forms, these bodies that we have, is to be able to manage those contracts, right? Because at that higher level, at that sort of 4D, 5D level, it's hard to really even conceptualize separateness. We're really all just this one mass of energy, right? So we come here so that we can cleanse the channels. Sometimes we do cord work. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with cord work. Sometimes it's manifested that way, and we can see these astral cords, so to speak, moving from ourselves to others. Sometimes they're dense, sometimes they're thick, sometimes they're thin. We develop a cord with everyone that we interact with, some sort of energy exchange, right? And we carry those across lifetimes. I mean, you even develop a cord with the checkout person at the supermarket, hopefully it's a positive one. And, if you don't want to keep that cord, you can be like, well, okay, nice to meet you. But, the ones we carry across lifetimes are very thick. They've been reinforced, and they're color coded. If you're working in astral space, they tend to be coded based on their lightness or their darkness, their density or their free flowing energy, right? So we can perceive these cords. We can see them. And when we do that, we can work with them. So that's one way we can kind of clear contracts. Another way is just to bring in that being that you have that contract with into your heart space. We talked about centering a little bit. You bring them there, and that's a space where there can only be truth. There can only be truth in that deep loving space, and figure out, what is this contract? What are we doing? Why are we repeating these patterns? What do you need from me? What do I need from you? What do I need to do to renegotiate this contract? This is the nature of a contract, right? Any contract can be renegotiated or annulled.
Right,
It's
right.
true of your mortgage, it's true of any relationship you have, and it's true of our past lives. So hopefully that makes sense.
So you can have more than one, right?
Many. We all have many soul contracts. Honestly, if you think about the principle of karma, right? Karma is our web of interactivity, our web of action, right? Like
Right.
we're all connected by all these strands. And these contracts, these bonds are what tie us all together. They're what bind us as we move from one life to another. So, most of them are beneficial. We have these soul groups and they bring us in, and they even will anchor to DNA. DNA itself acts as a sort of attenuation, as a sort of antenna that brings in similar souls. That's why we bring in our ancestors and our descendants over and over again, right? We have these loving bonds. So we have the opportunity, we have the ability when we activate our higher senses to renegotiate these cords, these bonds, these connections.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, from what I understand too, is that we aren't alone in this journey, right? We have our spirit guides that help us with these contracts as well, right?
Absolutely. We work with guides quite a bit in Akashic Trancework. Some people don't like to work with guides. Some people do. And we very much are a modality that encourages people to find their own spiritual truth within a heart-centered context. So many people work with guides, with different beings, and a guide can be virtually anything. It could be a god or a goddess or an angel or a light being, an ascended master, an ancestor, a totem animal, a weird imaginary cartoon character, a song, a feeling, a number. A guide can be many things. A guide is just something that helps you somehow. Now, a lot of people, many people, very viscerally, very emotionally experience the presence of distinct personalities, distinct guides. My partner and other people often are in contact with deceased family members, with parents, with other ancestors. We do a lot of ancestor work. We've been able to help many people connect very viscerally, very directly in their astral awareness with their ancestors, to the point where they had to actually kind of make them go away a little bit, because you know what it's like when your family comes around too much. You love them, but we're not having dinner tonight. Sorry, Dad. Kind of thing. So it's very interesting. Ancestors, animal guides are also very powerful. We do a lot of work with animal guides. Animal guides and ancestors are tied in together in a very sort of esoteric way that's hard to really explain, but it's very true. Our ancestors, all of us, had deep reverence for animals, and animals are our brothers, especially birds. There's a special magic about bird guides. I love bird guides. Other beings too, light beings, star beings, Arcturian, Syrian energies. We work with those a lot. I can sense that in both of you. So we are all here. We have many different beings. We have entire families of beings who are here to nourish and nurture and protect us. And I begin every session by inviting you to call in all of those beings to ensure that you are receiving what is there for you for the highest benefit of yourself and all other beings.
That's really interesting. You bring up the birds for the spirit animals. I tend to always see woodpeckers just out randomly. I guess it's not random, but I just always happen to see woodpeckers as my bird that I associate with. I don't know if that's normal, but that's the bird I always usually see.
Birds are so powerful. I could actually go on for quite a while about birds, but there's an interesting fact about the evolution of birds. If you think about how we evolved alongside birds, the bird is the evolution of the dinosaur, and we're the evolution of these tiny little mice-like creatures, right? So they used to eat us, but over time, we kind of out-evolved them. They became smaller, we became faster, and they had to keep pace with us. They developed feathers, we developed hair, we learned to climb, they learned to fly, they learned to make these sounds, we learned to make these sounds. The human vocal tract is capable of mimicking almost any bird sound.
Wow.
I believe they taught us to speak. I also believe they guided our earliest ancestors to water through the desert. How do you find desert? How do you find water in a desert?
Right,
Right.
yeah.
Only way, one of the only ways to find water. That's how animals in a desert find water, is by following birds. Birds are guiding us to water. What is water? Water is love, water is emotion, but water is life too. You have no life without water. And of course, only the animals that are fastest, that can look up, are going to see the birds. So our ancestors that could run, that could look up. So yeah, I have a whole theory about birds, and I could go on about that, but there's some definite bird magic that all of us as human beings share.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm guessing, did you want to touch on asking him more about the ET stuff? Or I don't know if you wanted to go into that too, Nathan, or okay, he's open.
You open
Go
for
into almost anything. You know, I've had such a wide range of astral experiences.
That's so cool.
So this modality is also heavily inspired by our starseed experiences. So I will say that about a month before all of this came together, I had a very direct Arcturian channeling. And the Arcturian came through and told me that, basically channeled through me and expressed that my partner and I had a specific role within the grid, within the energy matrix, which is to help certain energies that are of a denser nature to rise up, to ascend, to transmute it alchemically. And we were given specific mudras and specific tones to use. So that was kind of the beginning of the starseed influence. And it was probably about 6 weeks later when my partner started being contacted by what seemed like some sort of amphibious alien. And it was very startling for her. This being, we later found out, was a Namo from Sirius B, who the Dogon of West Africa have documented meeting with. Do you know about the Dogon of West Africa at all?
Nope.
So the Dogon of Mali in West Africa are the genetic and cultural descendants of a group of Kemetic mystics, Egyptian mystics, who separated from Egypt and moved to that part of the world when Egypt started to become a patriarchy. At one point, Egypt was a sort of mystical matriarchal society, and then when the dynastic period began, they became a sort of imperialistic patriarchal society, right? So these mystics moved to Mali and basically maintained the original Egyptian mystical arts, language, philosophy until the modern age. They're still there. It's been 3,000 years. So there are 3,000-year-old cave paintings that depict not only all the planets of our solar system, which are not all visible by the naked eye or even with a telescope, right?
Yeah.
But the movements of the secondary dwarf star of Sirius, which we call Sirius B, which is also not visible from Earth. They had that all painted.
Right. So
And
how
they say, yeah.
How else would they have known that?
Exactly. How else? How else? So, yes, they're
Well,
there.
It's nice talking to somebody that knows about these ETs. That does. It's not just the Roswell ones that were constantly fed through the media. And I've just gotten into all this stuff a year ago. I had my awakening about a year ago, and just the painting that I see the media portraying UFOs is these beings that just want to take over the planet, and just they paint this nasty picture. And from what I understand and from my researching in the community that I'm in, most of these beings are benevolent, and they want to actually help us to ascend past our third dimension. And from what I also understand is our planet right now is moving, our universe is moving into a different phase of energy that's going to help bring humans into a higher density. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that.
Well, that Ascension Agenda is what the Arcturians and Pleiadians are sending us. It's what they're broadcasting to us.
Yep.
And many people are very well served by that. There are many other beings out there of different dimensional vibrations that have other agendas.
Yep.
Some of them are what we would say, negative or malevolent because they don't know about love, right? They think that they need to manipulate and take love from others. I call that the archonic error. These are the archons. And really, they're just like these sad little children who don't know how to get love. Their mothers never loved them, right? And there's no difference between, physical sort of tyrant or politician or CEO, somebody who's a power hungry, malevolent, vindictive person, and one of these energies out there. It's just a different vibration of it. There are certain energies that do only exist at sort of a fourth dimensional astral level, but have not made that heart-centered fifth dimensional connection. And those are some of these beings. Now we have the grays, and I think that's what, you know, you were kind of talking about. A lot of people talk about the physical
Yep.
grays, and I do know people that have had some very specific encounters with them, enough to know that there is something real happening there. So my feeling, my theory on the grays is that they are fourth dimensional, three-dimensional beings that are to be taken on a case-by-case basis, just like anybody else you meet, right? Some of them have beneficial agendas, some of them have more selfish agendas, some of them are just curious, but you know, curiosity itself can be dangerous, you know, I mean, because they have access to certain telepathic astral technologies that they just like to play with, right? So it's really important to establish certain practices when dealing with any guide, even if that guide is just some wispy manifestation of your own subconscious mind, or if it's a full-on gray alien sitting over there trying to telepathically convince you that you're a pineapple or something. You
Okay.
know, I mean, really, there's no telling. You know, it's all about creating a boundary, creating a sort of shield around your consciousness, and it's at the heart center. That's where we shield in. So we use that place to connect with the other beings, with the star beings that we want to connect with. And if a gray wants to connect with us, you know, we want to make sure that it's somebody we want to connect with. It's just like, you know, if somebody hits you up on Facebook, you want to make sure that it's not somebody that is going to attack you, right? Same thing, right?
Right, because
Creating a boundary.
if you, that's what I, because I don't know if you've heard about the CE5 events, the Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind, where you kind of get into a meditation state. You can do it by yourself or with a group, and you telepathically connect with these ETs, and sometimes they reveal themselves right out in the open as far as their ships or whatever craft they're doing. And I've always wanted to do that, but I've also had that fear of making sure, like, I don't want to open myself to something that's not benevolent, because once that door is open, some damage can be done, from what I believe.
Yeah, stick to connecting telepathically, astrally to vibrations you trust. I trust the Arcturians because I've worked with them quite a bit. I can channel in an Arcturian right now for you if you want. But basically, I trust that vibration. I've deployed them. I've worked with them. I've connected with them. I think I've been them in some way, so I trust them. A lot of people like to work with the Pleiadians. I haven't had a lot of direct connection with them, so I don't work with them. My partner has a Syrian guide. She works with him, with her, with them. It's like an androgynous being. I don't. Although sometimes she says I come into their astral space and communicate with them, which does happen. So yeah, you know, we want to really stick with bringing in. I actually teach an advanced class on channeling, and channeling is something that should be done very selectively, you
Yeah.
know, and the energies that you invite into your space also should be done very selectively. So, you know, sitting and looking for a physical manifestation of a being, you know, that's asking for a lot of very powerful energy to come into your space. So my recommendation to anyone who came to me asking, should I do this? I would say, you know, follow your intuition, but make sure you are grounded, centered, shield, that you're prepared to receive what you're asking for.
Right, and that's what I've heard a lot of these guys that do CE5 events, because they said it can literally change your life, and it sometimes in a really negative way if you're not spiritually prepared to have that happen and right to physically in front of you.
Yeah, it's going to be like doing DMT without any prep.
Right. Right.
So how do you shield yourself and get rooted?
I use a very simple practice that I call astral boundaries, right? So you mentioned getting rooted too. So the mantra that I use and that I teach is ground and center, ground and center. You know, we hear about this a lot, but what does this mean, right? Grounding is any practice that reminds you that you are a physical being in a physical body and expressing gratitude for what your body does for you. We are 3D beings. I don't believe in transcending the 3D experience. I believe in celebrating the 3D experience, celebrating our physical experience on earth. And part of that is just that gratitude practice. And it can be anything. Sometimes it's going out and walking on the earth. It can be something as simple as, you know, doing chores, taking care of a child. You know, there's almost nothing more grounding than taking care of a child, right? whatever you do with presence, I've learned to ground while driving, just being fully present with my driving experience and just being grateful, for the amazing ability that my body has learned to drive. I mean, it's crazy if you really are present with it. Anything that you do, if you can be fully present with it, will ground you in. So I do that exercise as much as I can, just bring myself to full presence, which is not easy. I'm an Aquarius. I'm very distracted most of the time. Even right now I have 10 other plans happening in my mind. So I have to be very careful and mindful to stay focused on what I'm doing. So that's a grounding practice, just trying to stay present, stay focused. Once I do that, then I can begin to tap into my heart energy. The heart is the center of your being. The heart is where higher self and lower self meet. It's the two triangles coming together. Merkaba, there's a lot of different words for this. We go to this space astrally. We visualize it. We take ourselves there and we create it. We build it. A lot of practices do this. They say, go to your safe space. But we've come to understand this really is your safe space. This really is your heart. There's very real scientific research on the value of this. Heartmath.org, if you're not familiar with them, they do a lot of amazing scientific work on this practice of creating heart-mind coherence. This is the true centering practice. This is what allows us to achieve balance between body and mind. The coherence pattern of the heart matches the gamma wave activity of the brain. Gamma waves are present in people that are in deep states of active meditation. It's an active state. We want to be able to achieve these grounded, centered places from an active state. It's fairly easy for most of us to ground and center if we're just meditating or laying down.
Yeah.
But, if you're undergoing stress, if you're dealing with other people, it's not so easy. So we want to be able to activate this coherence in all states. So yeah, that's grounding and centering really in a nutshell. And again, I can go on and on and on. It's so important. If you're going to be doing trance work, if you're going to be doing astral stuff, then grounding and centering should always be the first and last thing that you do.
And I just know from I just started meditating probably 4 or 5 months ago, because I don't know if Connie told you, I came from a Christian background. So a lot of this stuff for me was told that tarot cards, readings, all this stuff is witchcraft. It's of the devil. And that's what I was used to hearing. So I just shunned away from all this type of stuff and just thought it was all made up crap. But now that I've gotten away from that and I started meditating, just the most powerful meditations I think I've had are just the ones where I've been in just a grateful state, and just even saying just thank you 100 times to the universe, not even knowing what I'm thanking it for. And literally I can feel like my mind's opening. And I kind of almost get like a natural high out of it. And when I'm coming out of that meditation state, I feel like I was in a completely different world. And I can't really explain it, but it's just that the attitude of gratitude is very powerful for sure.
Yeah, and that is the coherence practice. Honestly, I mean, there's a lot of theory. If you go to their website, you can download all these different studies they've done. But if you look at the actual practice, you focus on your heart, you send your attention there, you take some deep breaths, and you bring in something you're grateful for.
Right.
It's that simple, and that's how you achieve coherence. We like to take it a step deeper and bring in our associations. We bring in more and more information that creates positive, nurturing, loving, nourishing spaces within us. Because, the mind can get kind of bored with things that are too simple. Simple is good, but also we want to make sure that we're staying focused on that heart place. So when we go into the heart place, we bring in things that we're not only grateful for, but all the things that bring us joy. The people, the energies, the animals, the memories, the sensory associations. We use neuro-linguistic programming techniques to bring us physically into that space, bring our senses into that space, activating all of the associations. So it begins, and it can always end just by focusing on that space. But when you really go there, when you go to your heart temple, to your astral heart temple, we call it sometimes, it's so powerful. You actually get a physical response from your body. You'll get these tingling waves of energy moving out from your body. It's a reward.
Right.
Your limbic system, your brain is rewarding you for doing that. And it's what most of us seek outside of ourselves for. We seek drugs, alcohol, music, sex, whatever it is, for a sort of high. And going into this heart space, activating this space, can give us the same reward, the same dopamine, the same serotonin. All those things can be activated from in that place.
All right, I can definitely attest that because it literally feels like there's electricity flowing through your body. That's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah, it's your chi.
Right.
Yeah.
Love it.
So just to bring us back around to the Akashic record part, pretty much essentially it's a book of life on every person. It's your own book of life, and I know it's gonna show you your good and your bad, past, present, future. And my thing is, once you're up there, so you pass, you go up to your spirit guide. They say this is what you've done, and are you able to change like experiences, or if you see something in the future that you're not happy with, are you able to change anything in those records as you go back down and start over again?
So I don't believe that anything is written in stone. There are many timelines. We live in a multiverse where all timelines are occurring all at once. We're living in a specific timeline. We're all here to experience whatever we choose to experience. I can choose infinite timelines right now, and I can slip between timelines if I choose. I know people that have walked across timelines that are walk-ins from parallel timelines.
That's cool.
So everything is happening. You can choose which timeline you want to experience. It's very
Right.
possible. And we do. With every tiny choice we make, we're choosing what timeline we wish to integrate with. So yeah, it's almost like the answer is, there's nothing to change because we can experience, and we're here to experience everything that we are. Now, when you're dealing with old memories, with traumatic memories, what we may want to change is our perspective on those things. And this is something that we do with our current life memories too, as well as past life memories sometimes, because we have two different types of memories. Really, we have our cellular holographic memory, which is just information. It's information on the hard drive of your cells that has all of the sensory data. What was happening at a given time? What did your ears, eyes, nose, body detect in the environment? What did you feel physically? What was it? Pain, pleasure? It's basically what it is, pain or pleasure. Most things are flagged. Was it good or bad, right? And that sort of flagging is what creates our beliefs and our associative memory, our cognitive memory, our knowledge around events. And that's where things can get messed up. And that's where things like PTSD happen, because the stories that we have about events isn't necessarily true, or even if it is true, it's not framed correctly. So what we often do when we go into past lives is we look at, what do we believe about ourselves because of what happened to us? What do we believe about the world? What have these beliefs done for us? Belief is a tool, right? Belief creates a working model of reality for us. So it's the same practice, whether or not we're doing a sort of Gestalt therapy and a hypnosis session, or if we're doing a past life session. It's kind of the same practice, reframing, reconceptualizing.
That's awesome.
Okay, I know I'm trying to figure out which question I want to go with next. So what have you learned from doing these readings with people?
Everything. I mean, we've really developed an entire modality around what we've learned from working with Coherence, and beyond just doing readings. I will say that readings are probably my second favorite thing to do, because as accurate as my readings are or are not, sometimes they're not. When I take someone else into a past life regression, when I have them travel into their own past lives, it's so much more real, it's so much more powerful and empowering. And I've really made some interesting connections. I've learned about places that other people have lived that no longer exist. I've learned about specific starseed legacies, alien legacies that we have. I've learned about how many of us are carrying this dense warrior karma. I've learned about how many of us are healers at base. I've learned how gentle many people are. And I've also learned that our main purpose is to experience and be unconditional love. That's our main purpose throughout all of our incarnations. And everything we do, everything that we are, is about finding different ways to express that. We're here to express and experience Why would you plant a garden? Just to express and experience and benefit from being in life, living in life. It's not an accident. The heart center vibration energy is green, right? We're here to live, we're here to love. And this is the same theme that I see in almost all the readings. You know, how do I express love? How do I experience love? Everything else, all the things that people think matter, don't matter near as much as that.
That's lovely.
That's awesome.
How did you meet your twin flames start working together?
So that's a pretty interesting story. We were living 2,000 miles apart. I was living in Seattle, and she was living here in Michigan, where I live now. Coincidentally enough, she was living in my hometown, where my parents live. You know, she didn't grow up here. She actually moved here around the same time that I had left, which is a funny sort of.
Wow.
Yeah, and we met through a mutual friend on Facebook, and we just started talking, and I started visiting her, and we immediately clicked. And I never even heard about the whole twin flame thing before. I mean, I had heard it somewhere kind of randomly. I never. But when I got the vision of two flames joined, just kind of next to each other, kind of joining and merging, then I just knew, and I started using the term, and she was a little taken aback by it because she had actually done a little bit more research on the twin flame stuff and seen, you know, it's not always the rosiest path, right? I don't know if you guys know about
No, it's
twin
not
flames.
usually.
Right.
Yeah, right. So it's a very powerful, transformative, alchemical relationship that really pushes you and forces you to become a spiritual being. It forces you to move through all of your conditioning. Most people are not ready for that. Most people will just run. You know, this whole runner chaser thing that sometimes happens because it is a relationship that forces you to transcend all of your conditions. You know, if you looked at either of us on paper, you wouldn't think that we were compatible. But, you know, when we're together, we're practically the same person, you know. And, you know, we have our push and pull. We have our different mirror moments where we don't always see eye to eye, but we're always able to find alignment. We're always able to come together. And when we do, that's when the alchemical change happens. We actually, our parent company that we do all of our different products under is called Alchemical Child. And that's kind of part of the story too. We kind of put together this idea of, all right, well, this is going to be our child, our alchemical child. And we just bought the website, you know, it was 888 design, right? Abundance number. And I just bought the alchemicalchild.com domain. And we decided that for all of our products, we were going to just use this sort of overarching entity, you know, this creative energy. And at first it was this sort of collaborative directory for different services, right? And part of this, the purpose of this directory was to promote my partner's practice, Astara's practice, which is called Laughing Goddess, which is essentially spiritual guidance for women. She works with women to help them clear trauma, to help them reclaim their sexual power. It's just some amazing work, laughinggoddess.com. Check it out. But that was the original practice that Alchemical Child was sort of the umbrella for. And then as time went on, as I began to have these different experiences, we developed and grew together continually through our transformative process, through working together, through our experiences together to build this Akashic Trancework practice, which has just grown so quickly. We've just been able to bring through so much information so quickly. It's almost overwhelming to us. You know, people ask us what we do, and we're like, well, here's a whole massive list of things and resources. And it's like, whoa, slow down. But yeah, it's just been so amazing. And we continue to always come up with new things, new ways to connect with people. We're now doing sound baths, crystal bowl sound baths. Astara trained to be a sound alchemist last year, and she now has a set of crystal singing bowls, quartz crystal singing bowls.
Wow.
So people that are local to us can come and experience that while I guide them or do readings or soul retrieval or any of these different things that we do. It's so powerful. We can do it over remote sessions as well, but you know, the quality of digital connection sometimes iffy, but it can be experienced both ways. But yeah, we've just come up with so many different things we continue to because of this sort of twin alchemy. been really powerful.
So that's a perfect transition as we wind down here. What your school? What exactly? You don't have to go into great detail into everything you guys do, but what are some of like your cornerstone practices that you like to get out to the masses of what you guys do?
So we have so many things. Right now, we are focusing on our educational tools. We really want to teach people how they can fish, so to speak. We want to teach practitioners, seers, mystics, all the people out there that are needing to make sense of their inner experience, their astral experience, all these new points of awakening. So to that end, we have a couple different courses we've developed. We have our Akashic Trancework initiation. And we also have a womb-wise work group that my partner has started for the Laughing Goddess product, which is more tailored directly towards women and ancestral connections through the womb space. The Akashic Trancework initiation is kind of our foundational practice. It takes you through what we call the ARE cycle, activation, release, and expansion, in 28 modules. There's 28 entrainments. We have two different versions of this. We have also a self-paced version that you can take. And you can just get access to our classroom portal, and it has all the information you could need there. And if you follow the information, if you follow the steps from lesson 0, grounding, to lesson 27, accessing and reading the Akashic record for others, then you will be transformed. The people that have gone through all those steps have been changed. A lot of people do get a little bit stuck in the release process, but fortunately for the self-paced people, they can take as long as they want to. Now on July 5th, around July 5th, we're going to be starting one of our intensive cohorts. This is a 9-week online, fully engaged initiation where we go through each of the 9 modules. And what we do is we have live engaged workshops over Zoom, over this platform. And we have discussion, and we have shared trance work exercises. We share our energy. So we love doing these. This is going to be our, I think, 5th cohort that we've done. And, we do them selectively throughout the year. And we just really love bringing together people that are on the same wavelengths, people that understand, people that you don't have to explain certain things to, that will just kind of get it. It's for the seers, the healers, the mystics, the witches, the people out there who are ready to understand who they are at a deeper level, to access their higher senses and learn how to do safe work, safe trance work effectively, right? Safety, grounding, centering, heart centering. We want to make sure we're doing this from the right intention. There's a lot of ways you can use these things, a lot of ways you can explore these things. And I've learned that it always has to come back to the heart. So we stress that over and over again. Grounding, centering, heart-centered awareness, always going back to that. And we found again that people that take this process are really transformed. At the end, we offer an assessment, and it's 28 exercises where you have to go through it on your own. I don't guide you. You basically are told, okay, go into your Akashic library, open a record, and read what's there for somebody else. And you're expected to do it on your own, and then you fill out the information there. And the feedback that we like from our students, the sort of left brain rational stuff is all well and good, tell me a story, but I really like to see our initiates create art, right? Art is the language of the subconscious mind. The Akashic space really speaks through symbolism, right? If you have a dream, everything in that dream is symbolic. So a big part of our process is trying to activate the creativity of our querents. I'd much rather have somebody paint me a picture of what they experience in their trance work journey than just tell me about it, although sometimes hearing about it is great. I tend to be a writer. So my partner and myself, we both tend to write about our experiences, but we have many querents who are very accomplished artists. I have one of my querents, Jennifer Bates, is an amazing artist. She draws these animal totems, and she does readings based on what she draws, and it's just amazing what she does. She's done some amazing readings for myself, and I have other querents, other initiates that have really learned how to activate their creative sides through this work. Even people that didn't think they had any kind of creativity have really been opened up. And that's really another part of who we are. We're here to express, we're here to create, we're here to make beauty and to experience beauty.
That's awesome. So just so we can plug, because I'm going to share this with my platform on my channels and all that. Where can people find you on the internet and your social media?
You can go to Facebook at Akashic Trancework. You can go to www.akashictrance.com. You can also find us on Patreon at Alchemical Child. And you can hit us on Twitter if you want to. I don't do a whole lot on Twitter, but it's Alchemical Kid on Twitter.
Good. Awesome. Well, this has been really awesome, Nathan, and really eye-opening for us. I'm so glad I finally got to meet you. I know my wife's been talking about you a lot lately. And she really enjoys you and your work. So
Thank you.
I'm excited. I think I'm going to, I see you in like an hour, I believe, 8 o'clock.
Message me about that, and we'll talk about that, because I don't think I actually have you on my schedule.
I didn't think it was today.
Oh, I thought it was. Okay.
Okay. Either way, I'm going to meet up with you at some point to do my own reading, and I really can't wait for that. But again, I thank you for your time, and we really enjoy this.
Thank you. Much love, much blessings, deepest heart-centered joy to all who are listening. May all beings be present. May all beings experience the greatest benefit, deepest love, deepest connection, deepest joy. Peace and blessings. Namaste.